It's time to open up the week 4 mailbag. We've got a lot of questions on quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, is he a bust? Should the New England Patriots start Drake May after seeing some early returns from Jaden Daniels? But what about Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels? Did the Bears screw this up? All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks so much, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, all the everydayers out there, plus all the new listeners. Appreciate you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hang out with us every day talking NFL football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5 at Prize Picks. All right, tons of questions.
Yeah.
Are we pulling plugs on quarterbacks already after a few weeks? Who are we ready to anoint quarterbacks? Is Trevor Lawrence a bust? So many questions about this. I think we're gonna have to spend some time on Trevor Lawrence here because as one listener asked, I think who was it? Was it Michael? Someone said first of all, Joey Bag of Donuts. Love Joey Bag of Donuts. He's always good for one question in every mailbag. He says, what on earth is wrong with the Jaguars? Is it time to declare Trevor Lawrence a bust? And somebody, I think here it is. Bobby says, is Trevor Lawrence just a taller Bryce Young? And it's a rough one. And then we've got another listener. This is A. Hendricks, who says Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones, both high draft picks, both on expensive second contracts, similar stats. Why does everyone gleefully bury Daniel Jones while being so patient with Trevor Lawrence? And that's kind of my initial question to you, Matt, with all of this is, are we giving the generational Trevor Lawrence way too much of a pass here now into year 4 of his career?
Well, it seems like that pass is passing us by the way. I mean, I think people are catching on that he has been as much of the problem as he has been the solution of late. So here's my take on it is, coincidentally, we were asked about Trevor Lawrence's dynasty value today on Locked On Dynasty. Go check that out. I don't know what to do with him in that situation. But I've been an apologist, not because he was the first pick of the draft. I never saw him as a transcendent talent, the best prospect since John Elway, any of those things. But I thought last year in particular, he was unlucky with some things. You know, like, for example, by far, he lost the most EPA of any quarterback because of drops. You know, like, that's not his fault. And they had very little running game. And I do think that organization as a whole is a tough place to win because they're just not good at it. They don't have tradition and a lot of structure and culture. But that overlooks how poorly he's playing this year. I mean, he's been flat out bad. And the turnovers have existed since he's entered the league. And they're as bad now as ever. I mean, like, tips and overthrows. I mean, he has that overthrow in that last game that's 2 feet over his receiver's head. Boom, hits a safety in the numbers, and the drive is dead. And there's way too much of that. I don't know. I really think Chicago and especially Jacksonville have coaching staffs that seats are getting really warm. And I don't know if it seems like the head coach and the quarterback don't exist with one another well in Jacksonville. You're getting no kind of good vibes. They've won 8 games, or they've lost 8 games in a row going back to last year. And I almost think if we give this guy a new coach and he fails with that guy too, it's not you, it's me, you know?
We'll get more into the Chicago Bears in a little bit, but you can't, like, the cycle in Chicago is crazy. You draft a quarterback, one and done, and then the coach is fired after the first year of the quarterback. Like, you just can't keep doing that in Chicago. As far as Jacksonville goes and Trevor Lawrence, I for sure give him a pass. The Urban Meyer rookie year. I mean, that was just like
Brutal.
And then, so some improvements, year 2, year 3, like I see some glimpses of that guy we thought was going to be, a true number 1 overall pick type of quarterback. And, okay, he's not being helped that much by the offense and by the coaching staff. Tons of drops. All right, cool. So now you come into the next year. We're ready to go. He's paid. He's going to be that guy now. And he's actually regressed. And you have to try to isolate. And that's what's really hard in the NFL. With every team is like, okay, is it the coach? Is it the line? Is it the receivers? Is it the quarterback? But you have to, at some point, start seeing some results. And we're not seeing that right now.
No.
And you can blame another coach if you want, but at some point, you got to blame Trevor Lawrence for bad play and getting worse. Because they shouldn't be getting worse in the same offense at this point. And you can't blame drops right now either.
Nope. And his supporting cast is good enough. It's not the best in the league, but it's good enough. I mean, I don't love the line in the running game still, but he's got weapons, and I guess he'll get Ingram back before long, and it's a lot on him. And I don't know what to make of it. I do know that there's nothing you're going to do about it. You just gave him a massive contract. He's going to be the quarterback there. I don't think it's like a Deshaun Watson death sentence, but I think it's really concerning, and a coaching change is probably the last resort, but it could be on the horizon.
Right. And it's kind of the last thing. It's like, well, Trevor Lawrence, we just paid him. He's not going anywhere. So we're going to try one more coach. And if that doesn't work out, then the whole thing gets blown up.
I guess. And then you fielding offers for him, or, you know what I mean? Look at that.
For those of you watching on YouTube, let's bring it up on the screen.
It's amazing.
Hendricks brought this up, and here's the stats between Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence, and I'll explain it to the audio listeners out there. I got a nice little graphic here on YouTube, and appreciate that being dropped on us and by the listener. By the way, head-to-head, Daniel Jones 1-0. Love that. So Daniel Jones played more games. He was what? Was it the draft right before? What year was Daniel Jones' draft?
Was he 1 or 2 ahead of him? Yeah. And
so the counting stats, passing yards, we're not going to, it's in Daniel Jones' favor, but
it should be.
He would get passed up this year by Trevor Lawrence with the same amount of games. Completion percentage, though, Daniel Jones 64%, Trevor Lawrence 63.2%. You look at yards per attempt, yards per game. Again, the per stats are still a little bit more on Trevor Lawrence's side. The TDs per game, pure TDs are on Daniel Jones' side, but look, 10 more games and Trevor Lawrence would have more. He would have more passing yards. So look, Trevor Lawrence's stats are still better than Daniel Jones', but it's pretty close for a guy that you and I talk about all the time, Matt, where it's like, Daniel Jones has a better quarterback rating. He's better in the rushing department as well. Trevor Lawrence can move, so that's kind of similar. I don't think it's a big win for either guy, but that's kind of the idea here. Is like we're ready to move on. We've been ready to move on from Daniel Jones for 3 years. Trevor Lawrence, we're giving him another pass still, and we still kind of are because we just said it's going to be the coach, not the quarterback, that we're going to blame that thing on again this year. And these statistics are too close for those two quarterbacks to have that different feeling about who they are. And it's gotten, from my feeling about Trevor Lawrence has changed a lot in just 3 weeks this year, because I sure was giving him a pass again after last year and all the drops, and it needed to be better, and it's gotten worse.
Yeah, I used to feel like I was his attorney, and now I don't want that job anymore. He's he's a hard client to keep out of jail right now. Because he is playing poorly, and the turnovers I keep coming back to. He fumbles a lot, he throws a lot of picks. None of that stuff has changed.
Yeah, if you want to talk counting stats, that's one thing where Trevor Lawrence in 10 fewer games has already thrown,
similar amount of,
more per game. So, Trevor Lawrence he's got to get more efficient. Is that his biggest problem, being more efficient?
That's part of it. I do think his control. I think he's got a really good mind for the game, though, and understands things. I guess his efficiency isn't great. That's for sure. Nothing's great right now. So, question for you. If he would have been a 3rd-round pick, does he get the same contract, and is he still the starter in Jacksonville?
Well, the 49ers fans lose their minds every time because they're like, look, nobody ever wants to believe in our guy, Brock Purdy, because he was the last pick in the draft. And everyone's eternally given a pass to Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence ranks ahead of Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has absolutely, if you put those side to side, Brock Purdy is absolutely
blows the door, though.
Lawrence as far as if you've been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league, better coaching situation, better playmaker situation around him for sure. But nobody wants to give credit to Brock Purdy, and everyone wants to give excuses to Trevor Lawrence. And my listeners at Locked On 49ers bring that up often, that nobody wants to believe in the last pick in the draft, and everybody, all they want to do is believe in the first pick in the draft.
But there's a reason he was first pick in the draft, and there's a reason Purdy was the last pick in the draft too. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't. It's not non-consequential.
And if Trevor Lawrence was cut tomorrow, you think Kyle Shanahan might be like, hey, you know what? Let's bring in Trevor Lawrence and take a look.
Yeah. I mean, like, if Fields and Wilson don't work out, then I could get him for a 4th-round pick and pay his contract from the Steelers. Like, I'm thinking about it. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is Daniel Jones is Duck Hodges and Trevor Lawrence is Justin Fields now.
Real quick. So these stats are wonderful, and there's something to be said for it. But I know your answer on this because your feelings on Daniel Jones. But I'm sure our listeners would much rather play against Daniel Jones than Trevor Lawrence still.
Right. And if the Giants came calling and said, we'll take, like, even we could undo the salary cap ramifications too. Yeah. No cap hit at all. We'll trade you Daniel Jones for Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars would say, stick it. And if the Jaguars called the Giants and offered them Trevor Lawrence for Daniel Jones, the Giants would say, yes, please. No takebacks. Give me Trevor Lawrence. So is that right or wrong? I don't know, but that's still the way everybody feels still about the situation. But it's
trending the wrong way, though.
And we're for sure, like, that leash is shortening up by the week now for Trevor Lawrence. Like the getting a pass part is going away, and this is kind of the last year of it. And another coach is going to get fired probably if it continues this way. And speaking of Shanahan, do we go Shanahan tree here with another offensive coach? Do you go defensive coach to try to figure that out? Because you see what's going on with some of these other teams with Shanahan tree coaches. And so if you want a part of the Clint Kubiak offense or Bobby Slowick, if you are a team that with a quarterback that you want to try to turn things around with, so maybe that's the direction to go with things.
I'm stealing this from Marcus Mosher from Locked On Dynasty, but Marcus is pretty dialed in, and he said Belichick. What would that do for you if you just gave him the whole keys to the entire organization? You have this quarterback, Belichick. This is your team. You can throw it 1,000,000 times if you want. You can throw it once if you want. Whatever you feel is right. And then I took it a step further and said, if this was last year and I'm Harbaugh and I'm the hottest coach out there, this is closer to going to work with Herbert than it is going to work with Bryce Young.
Well, I think that's why they got Urban Meyer in the first place, because that was like a big get, right? Oh, we got the first pick in the draft. I'm going to go draft Trevor Lawrence, and we're going to run this league for 20 years, which lasted 1 year.
Not so much.
Less than 1 year. Right? Well, it's going to be hard for Bill Belichick to coach the Jacksonville Jaguars when he's already hired by the Dallas Cowboys. So
true. That was the other thing Marcus said. He's a Cowboy guy. It's like, well, then maybe they should take the Cowboys dude. He's been around the block, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have the answers for it too, because it's kind of head scratching. Because Trevor Lawrence is, I still think he's better than what we've seen this year, especially.
Me too.
But it's got to happen. It's got to happen at some point.
It's horrendous.
That pass is about to run out. It's about to expire. Next, let's talk Drake May. Should the Pats start him? What about Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels to start their careers? More moves at quarterback could be coming. Do you bench Will Levis? And what are the Dolphins going to do now? Their backup to Tua is now banged up. We'll get to all.
So I always do this to you, but I just went to the EPA page. You take EPA and completion percentage over expectation. Only Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson are below Lawrence right now. I mean, he's below Watson and Caleb Williams and Nix. I mean, it's horrendous.
Whoever it was, Bobby nailed it. Tall Bryce Young. It's Trevor Lawrence.
Right now, it's kind of how it's going.
All right, more quarterback talk next. Today's episode of Peacock Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the place to buy tickets for all of your concert, comedy shows, theater events, and yeah, of course, NFL football games. And in fact, you can save tons of money buying last-minute tickets. If you don't have those tickets for the next game you are trying to attend at Game Time. And now a new feature. Game Time has Game Time Picks. It's a new feature that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets potentially in a huge stadium when you're trying to buy NFL seats. So use Game Time Picks to try to filter through there and find the right tickets for you faster and easier. I talked about the last-minute tickets, get tons of great deals there. You got to toggle in the all-in pricing, in my opinion, at Game Time, so you get no surprise fees at checkout. Panoramic views from your seat, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So, seeing the success of rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. This is from Crime Dog, who is a self-proclaimed suffering Pats fan.
Oh, he's had it really rough the last 25 years.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Like, are you like 3 years old, Crime Dog?
Right. If you've been a fan for a year, you're allowed to cry, but otherwise, I don't want to hear it.
He says, is it time to look at starting Drake May? I think Jacoby Brissett has played within himself behind an awful O-line with limited playmakers and pedestrian Pats offense. I'd stick with him, but what are your thoughts? So Crime Dog is still worried about Drake May getting killed behind that offensive line, but seeing another rookie quarterback, the guy drafted one pick in front of Drake May and Jaden Daniels, have success in prime time on Monday Night Football, is it time to let Drake May go out there and do some things?
What's funny about these conversations is no one cares about Brissett's health or well-being. You know, like, oh, he gets, like that happens all the time. Like,
I know, poor Jacoby Brissett. They're like, oh man, line
right.
is bad. You can go take those hits.
That's your job, Jacoby. Yeah.
So my response to that is the same as it was before the season. So you're never gonna play Drake May,
right? I mean, we have to wait until you build an O-line in 2 years before you put him out there because it's not going to happen overnight.
And look, Jaden Daniels isn't sitting there in the pocket for 3.5 seconds and getting hit.
Right.
We talked about that on yesterday's show about Jaden Daniels, and they're getting the ball out of his hands quickly and utilizing the run
on the move.
So
yeah,
that's the plan. If you're and Drake making, he's not as athletic as Jaden Daniels, but he can get out on the move and make some plays. So simplify it, get the ball out of his hand quickly, and avoid the O-line by throwing it in 2.5 seconds.
I lean in this situation, seeing that what the Pats are now, to getting him in there immediately, if not sooner. And frankly, he's going to get out of the rushes way better than Brissett. But again, nobody cares about Brissett being, a battering ram. Unless when I say he can't protect himself, I don't mean because he has a bad ankle or he can't run around. I just mean like he doesn't know the protections or doesn't recognize blitzes and things like that yet, the mental side of it. If he's not out there and able to get out of a bad play or a free hitter, then you can't throw him out there. But I think his time's coming very soon.
And they're both rookies, but it's easy to forget that Jaden Daniels has multiple more years of experience playing football than Drake May does. Drake May
is Bo Nix, right?
True junior. Jaden Daniels is a fifth-year senior.
Yep, him and Nix and Penix are old.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels started as a freshman, and Bo Nix started more games than any player in college football history
ever.
Yeah, and so he has to. You still have to be comfortable that he can apply that offense that we're talking about. It's really easy to say, hey, get the ball out of your hands quick. Well, he has to know where to go with the ball and be able to do that. And if he can't do that, then you can't play him yet. So that's probably the line. Waiting for an offensive line to be built. It's like, how many years are you going to wait? So that can't be the answer to me.
On the surface, I say get him out there now in the second half when they're losing this week.
Right? Yeah, exactly. At what point, Matt, do you pull the plug on Will Levis? This question from Christopher. He says it's bad enough to turn it over, but he's gifted opponents 2 touchdowns in 3 games as well. So it's not just turnovers, not just bad play, but you're actually putting points on the other team's board when you're in at quarterback.
So what I find interesting is I'm sure ownership went to this coaching staff and said, we love Levis. We want you to fix him and get him right. Okay, sure. I'll do whatever it takes to get the job. But now I'm the coach, and I'm sitting there, and I came from Cincinnati, and I'm watching Levis play and go, boy, is there anyone more polar opposite than Joe Burrow than Will Levis? I mean, one guy's just chucking and ducking and standing in there and, throwing crazy balls and not being precise with his accuracy. And frankly, the guy that they brought in, this is going to sound stupid because I'm from Pittsburgh, Mason Rudolph plays like Burrow. Like, he's a cerebral, quick processor. That's who they chose. I mean, of course, as a backup. I mean, if they could chose Mahomes, they would have. And I'm not saying you dump Levis for Rudolph, but I think that's going to happen before long. Like, I'm seeing power ranks now at Tennessee at 32. Like, are they that bad? Is it time to trade Nuke Hopkins? And
yeah, I would. So that was my thing with the 49ers preseason, not to bring this back to the Niners, but
yeah.
When the talk was that the 49ers were going to trade Brandon Ayuk, but they needed to make another move and bring in another wide receiver. I was like, no, why? Play with what you got, see what you have, and trade for DeAndre Hopkins at the deadline, right? Because I was like, he's probably going to be available, or Devontae Adams, who knows? Someone could potentially be available at the trade deadline, and I still think that's going to happen for the Titans potentially, because I think this is not going to be their year. It would be miraculous if it turned around, but at the same time, okay, so Mason Rudolph's a little better. I kind of feel like this way about the Carolina Panthers, like.
Right.
All Andy Dalton's going to do is take you out of the first pick in the draft. Don't do that with Mason Rudolph. You don't need to see what Mason Rudolph is. Give every single rep you can to Will Levis. See if you can fix him. See if he gets better. And have the evaluation complete. And, maybe at the end of the season, it's such a disaster that you bring in Mason Rudolph or something like that. But at no point anytime soon would I pull the plug on Will Levis, unless my plan was, which I think might be similar to the Carolina plan, is you put in the veteran a little bit just to reset the young player and then put the young player back out there. But there's no reason for the Panthers, and and I'm looking at this from a pure asset standpoint. There's no reason for the Panthers to accidentally win games like they did last week with Andy Dalton. Is that going to help their franchise long term? I don't think so, and it's not going to help the Titans to go win a game with Mason Rudolph. Go earn the number one pick and see if Will Levis is really that bad. And if not, try to develop him in the meantime.
I mostly agree, but I think his play is warranting getting benched. I mean, you didn't say otherwise, but
yeah,
he's not playing like an NFL starting quarterback or showing signs of being one,
and then there's that. It's easy for me to say those things, but then in reality, so you look at the Carolina Panthers, in reality, you don't want to get fired. And you're a coach that you're like, look, this quarterback is bad. If I just have an Andy Dalton in there, look, the offense works. So it's not just me. I don't have to fire us. The running game works better. The running back, wants to get his yards. The receivers want to get their yards. So that's why you have to trade DeAndre Hopkins, because he's going to start getting annoyed at the bad quarterback play if you don't trade him. So you don't want to lose the locker room because the quarterback's so bad and everybody knows it. So
that's hard. That's a fine line.
Realities, coaches don't want to get fired. You should be playing to win, and that's why the plug will get pulled if he keeps throwing pick sixes.
I mean, if you kept putting Bryce Young out there, that's an awful long 5 months of being a Carolina employee.
Yeah,
like I lived with that with the Browns. We were like the worst team in the league, and going to the office is hard every day.
It's tough for fans because in the Madden world, you just sim the season.
Right.
Let's the season and then go play the next one.
And then you got to be out there for 3 hours in your own stadium with them throwing tomatoes at you or whatever, That's
all right. Next, I want to talk about the Miami Dolphins. And we have a question about Caleb Williams already versus Jaden Daniels. Early returns good on Jaden Daniels. Did the Chicago Bears make a mistake? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And there's a reason that FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, because of offers like this. Right now, new customers can start this season big with a huge return on FanDuel, because all you got to do is place a $5 bet, your first $5 bet, and then you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You don't even have to win that first bet. You can bet on everything. Who's going to win the next Super Bowl? offensive and defensive rookies of the year. Every weekly line, of course, in the NFL, college football, Major League Baseball, hockey, and basketball when those get going. And WNBA is already going. And WNBA is almost over already, actually, isn't it? And, car racing, every sport you can think of, billiards, you can find it at FanDuel. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app. And when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you want to go check out the latest stats, the scores, live play-by-play, and so much more. You can find all of it on the same page where you place your bets at FanDuel.com. Again, download the app or go to FanDuel.com. Sir Madrimissimo says, why do you think the Miami Dolphins haven't made a move for any real quarterback stopgap option to salvage this season? And it is a great question. And I have the same question.
It is.
And then we have, I'm sorry, earlier I said it was Hendricks. Hendricks has the question about the Dolphins. Earlier it was James that dropped us the Daniel Jones versus Trevor Lawrence comparison. So sorry, James, I got you wrong there. It is Hendricks that had the question about the Miami Dolphins here. And he says, if you're the Dolphins, would you consider shutting down your stars and treating this season like a massive preseason to get a high draft pick and go after the Super Bowl in 2025? After week 3's quarterback play, the future for this team is bleak. And if it wasn't bleak enough without Tua Tagovailoa, Matt, it has now been reported that the latest from Adam Schefter is that head coach Mike McDaniel said that quarterback Skylar Thompson is considered day-to-day with his chest injury, but the team is still mulling other quarterback options. How long are you going to mull if you're the GM of the Miami Dolphins? Because, I mean, it was obvious they should have done something already. What are they waiting for?
Sort of like the Jordan Love conversation when he got hurt, though, is do they have a better idea of when Tua is coming back? I mean, he's on IR. Do they think there's a legit chance that it's just those 4 weeks, he's better, you put him right back out there, and you hopefully have a really strong second half of the season and get into the playoffs and go from there? You and I don't know that. They may know that he's never played again. I mean, it's probably the answer is probably somewhere in between. It is a little odd they haven't done more than go got Huntley, though. I mean, like, we've brought up Garoppolo. Trust me, everyone around here is Russell Wilson's going to the Fins. I'm like, I don't think that's happening. I mean, a Brissett type would be great.
I don't know if Russell Wilson's the perfect fit in that style of offense. And Jimmy Garoppolo's already worked with Mike McDaniel, so that's why Garoppolo to me, and Garoppolo's probably cheaper. Like the Rams didn't say no to trade Jimmy G. Like I don't understand how that hasn't already happened.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. That's the type of move that makes sense to me. The Steelers aren't going to give you Russell Wilson for nothing. I mean, they're 3-0. They're trying to win. I mean. Right. A Brissett type would be great. I mean, somebody that's a true backup that's been around the block, but there's not a ton of options. I mean,
here we go. Let's put all these together. And by the way, again, Hendricks wants to sim the season for the Miami Dolphins. It's like, they're not going to sim the season, but it's at some point, it's like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing?
Well, they're not going to win many games on their own fruition anyway.
Right. Yeah. And
I don't think you're shutting down Tyreek Hill, though, in week 4.
And look, maybe the Rams are like, no, and they're trying to, price gouge them on Jimmy G. Nobody's really biting, so they just don't have options at quarterback, and so they're like, well, we're just gonna hope that Tua, and really it's our best chance is if Tua's okay in a few weeks and comes back and plays, and we have to hold our head above water until then. Like it feels like that's their plan, and they're just hoping.
Yeah, maybe and they know better than us, but I'm not sure what other options they have either.
Mm-hmm. And Tua might be like they might be talking to Tua behind the scenes, and he's doing better with his concussion, and he's like, I'm playing. No way I'm retiring. I am playing, and I'm going to be ready when I come off IR the first second. And maybe
that's what I'm hoping. It could be true.
And that's probably where Tua's head's at, and maybe that's why they're like, okay, good. We don't have to do anything crazy. We're probably going to get Tua back. And who should protect Tua from himself? It becomes another conversation altogether.
They should also probably draft offensive linemen once in a while too. That's a different story.
Very true. And Tua, please slide. Like, come on.
Yeah.
With all his concussion problems in the past, going head first, it's just like, man, all of it together, you hate it. You don't want to blame him, but it's like, man.
I mean, the GM's a little to blame here with the way they handled the backup quarterback in the offensive line.
They must have liked Skylar Thompson a lot more than us. And man, you were right on Skylar Thompson. It didn't look good even before he got injured.
No.
Last one real quick here from Michael. How nervous should the Chicago fans be right now that they did it again? They screwed up. First Trubisky over Mahomes, now Caleb over Daniels.
I don't think this has been Trubisky versus Mahomes or Young versus Stroud. But I mentioned the EPA chart here. Only Allen is ahead of Daniels right now. And only Lawrence, Young, and Richardson are below Caleb. But let's give it some time. Caleb's shown a lot of signs of being a high-end player after he works some things out.
So 3 of the 4 worst quarterbacks in the NFL are number 1 overall picks.
Yep. One of whom's been benched.
Yep. There you go.
And Richardson isn't far off, I guess.
I mean, it's way too soon. It's way too soon for those conversations.
Yeah, it is.
And I think Caleb Williams still, again, maybe we're giving him too much of a pass. In 3 years, we might still be talking about giving him a pass. But I think he's better than Mitch Trubisky. So I don't think Bears
fans done some good stuff.
Yeah.
They can't run the ball at all, and their O-line's terrible.
Yeah. And in fact, I would blame Trevor Lawrence right now more than I would blame Caleb Williams for how bad they're
Agreed.
Agreed. Thanks, everybody, for your questions. Always great ones. Apologies to the ones we did not get to. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. You can always drop the questions anytime while you're watching football this weekend at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or in the YouTube comments. Matt and I back Friday to finish up making our picks for the rest of week 4 right here. Peacock and Williamson.